Hey guys, we are live. It's Monday morning. Happy Monday. Last Monday of April 27th. Very excited and honored to have Ryan Williams on the show today. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you very much for having me, Ken.
You have a fascinating background. You have a lot going on, which you are going to tell a little bit about your background and give us whatever part of your life you want to share. Plus, you're running for office. So your entire world is crazier than normal, and you have to do it all in the quarantine. Before we take a deep dive, why don't you tell them a little bit about you while I make sure that all of this is being shared where it should be. So welcome
No
again.
problem. So I am one of what I feels like a handful of people to grow up in Central Florida. I was born in Winter Park Hospital and ended up growing up for the most part in South Lake County in Claremont. That was before Claremont had a Target and all the nice things it has now. It was just a Pizza Hut and McDonald's and a high school. So I grew up there. I met my wife actually when I was in the third grade, and we've been dating and or married since we were 16.
That's so cool.
I just watched them walk. Her and my two kids walk by. Of course, now that we're in quarantine land. So I was there, and I graduated from South Lake High School, valedictorian of my class. Ended up going to Rollins College for my undergraduate degree. Finished third in my class at Rollins and played soccer, which is to say that I was a walk-on on the men's soccer team, which means I watched a lot of soccer. I didn't play as much soccer as I probably would like to have, but it was a great experience, and I had a really good time at the college and learned a lot. And then from there, right after getting married, I went to law school at the University of Chapel Hill for North Carolina.
Beautiful.
Where my wife and I lived for 3 years, and she started her teaching career, which is ongoing now. And we had to make a decision about where we wanted to be and where I was going to practice. And being from Central Florida, my family was here. We decided to move back here. So I had offers from law firms here in town, some of which, if I name them, you would recognize pretty quickly. And I turned them down to go and work at the state attorney's office when I started in August of 2006. And I still remember telling my wife when I got home that I was going to turn down those offers for what was near six figures at the time and go make $34,000 a year at the state attorney's office.
Yeah, what was that reaction like?
Well, she was relatively stoic. My wife is exceptionally supportive. The good thing about knowing each other as long as we have is that she can't say that she was tricked into figuring out who I was. She knows that I'm a worker and that I don't always take the path of least resistance. So she was supportive. I think we both thought that it would be a more temporary thing than it was. I was going to try it out. And I wanted to serve my community and give back. I had some opportunities growing up. Obviously, if you go to Rollins, you see things that a lot of other people don't get to see. And I fell in love with the job, and I just really enjoyed getting up every day and going and doing the right thing. And the money wasn't all that important. We got what we needed for the most part. Of course, we didn't live extravagantly, but she was supportive. And, here I am several years later, still doing not the same thing, but the same sort of practice. And I've been a prosecutor since 2006. I started in county court with misdemeanors and, trespass and petty theft, and eventually worked my way up into felonies. And by the time before I was 30 years old, I was in the sex crimes and child abuse unit. Tried close to 50 cases involving sexual battery and child abuse and child sexual abuse, which is that was before I had kids. So that was a really difficult and rewarding experience. When I talk to young prosecutors, I tell them that the highs are very high and the lows are very low, and it prepares you for your career and the difficult work that's coming. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I actually left the office and I ran for state attorney at the age of 30.
Why did you want to run so young?
I didn't, is the answer to that. So Lawson Lamar was the state attorney at the time, and I have no ill will towards Mr. Lamar, but he had been there for a very long time, was getting up in age and at the end of his career. And a lot of people in the office, myself included, thought that he had sort of checked out. And I kept hearing everywhere, well, no one will run against him. He's an institution. Nobody wants to take that on. And then, okay, well, then, I don't like to be a person who complains about a problem. I'd rather try to solve it. So I decided to run. And not long after that, Jeff Ashton, fresh off of the Casey Anthony case, also decided to run. So I learned a lot about elections, a lot about public service, a lot about elected officials and the political process. It was invaluable, but I ended up getting out of the race because I was concerned that Jeff and I, Mr. Ashton and I, would split votes, and that Mr. Lamar would win. And a lot of politicians, I guess, have to make that decision.
Yeah.
What do you think is the greater good? And even though my wife did not want me to do that, did not want me to get out, she wanted me to finish the race. We decided it was best to support Mr. Ashton, who I did not think would win, by the way. But I thought it was the right thing, and we did. And lo and behold, he won. So in 2013, when he went back into the office, I went back with him, and I was the intake bureau chief. I was the youngest intake bureau chief at the history of the office, and charged with managing close to 50 people and sort of reorganizing the way the office received cases and charged them. So I did that for about 7 or 8 months. Once I finished the reorganization, Mr. Ashton asked me to go and prosecute homicides. And I've been doing that pretty much ever since. So I've been a homicide prosecutor for about 6, almost 7 years now.
I mean, I have so many questions, of course, but I wanted you to tell the whole story because it's just,
Sure.
it's amazing how you have climbed that ladder, or whatever that ladder is, at such a young age. What's it like being a prosecutor? You mentioned having kids. You prosecuted the sex crimes unit. Now that you have kids, what's it like prosecuting on the homicide side? We only get a taste of it, right? We only get our TV version of a taste of what that looks like, unless you've actually been in a courtroom before, and it's nothing like that. So it's down and dirty and can be pretty rough. So what's it like having kids and a family and doing that all day long?
It gives me perspective. The world can get pretty dark when all you see is death every day, and I know that's a strong statement, but particularly for about the last 4 years, I've only done capital litigation, so death penalty cases, which of course are the worst of the worst. And there are days where I come home and I've had to either look at photographs or, quite frankly, more importantly, speak to the surviving members of victims who have been killed, their family. But my kids remind me often of what I'm fighting for, why I do what I do. When they were very young, they're 7 and 5 now. When they were very young, daddy puts bad guys in jail. That's what they knew. And then when I started to do capital litigation, my daughter, who's 7 and is very sharp, explaining what I do was a little bit more difficult. But I take my responsibility as a father very seriously, just like I do my responsibility as a prosecutor. But they keep me grounded. They allow me that sense of levity when I get home, because I realize that now my responsibility is to them, and I have to be a good dad. And you can't bring that stuff home, because otherwise it's real easy to stew and to let it get in your head too much.
Sure. Tell me what you have, this champion spirit, and there you received an award, and I won't misquote it. You can share with us what it was, but you champion other people. Where did that come from? Where does that wanting to help, wanting to get justice? Because it's not everyone's like that. Not everyone has that. And I certainly once you go to law school, like you said earlier on, you could have had an opportunity to do the money path, more of the money path. What is it in you? Did you grow up that way? Did you learn it from someone? Did you have mentors? Where did that champion kind of thought process come from?
It came from my father. And people who know me, I have this very unique background in that I'm a prosecutor whose dad is in prison. So my dad and I have really, most people don't. I certainly don't run from it, but it's not usually at the top of my campaign page. But it formed who I am. So when I was growing up, we were pretty close throughout high school, and then I went to college at Rollins and was busy and my dad made a better living. He only had a high school degree. I was actually the first person from my family to go to college. But he was the CFO of a company in Lake County, and he made more and more money. And what I started to notice, Ted, was that the more money he made, the worse person he became. And I'm sure you've been around people who think that their money defines them and that allows them to treat people however they want. And I particularly saw that in the way he treated my mom. So I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was Thanksgiving of my third year at law school, and he and I sat down, and I told him, I said, "Look, if you can't be a better person, we're not going to have a relationship." And he didn't become a better person. And it turns out that unbeknownst to myself, my mother, and the rest of my family, he had been embezzling from his employer for a number of years. So I found all this out after I'd already started prosecuting. But what I have come to learn is that I wanted to be a better man. And, I never want my kids to look at me the way that I have at times looked at my father. So I knew that bigger picture. I knew that once you start making that money as a professional, it's really hard to reel that back and to change your lifestyle. So I thought to myself, if I'm going to make a difference and be the person I want my kids to be, now is the time. And like I said, I'm just fortunate because I really fell in love with the job, and it turns out that some of my skills fit the requirements of what it takes to be a good prosecutor.
Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. That's one advantage to me not doing much research. I had no idea. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
Gives a very interesting insight, and I appreciate it. All right, I have to ask, why are you running? What are you running for, and why are you running?
Well, the short version is I believe in justice for victims, but I also believe in justice for the accused. And I feel like we've gotten to a place now where we're being asked as citizens to choose one or the other. And I don't think we should have to do that. I think if you ask most people, including professionally, an eminently reasonable person. I follow the facts and the law, and I let those things dictate my decision making as opposed to a particular outcome that I'm seeking. So that's the short answer. The longer answer is, I worked in the office in 2016 when our current state attorney, Aramis Ayala, was elected. And I was there when Markeith Lloyd murdered Deborah Clayton and when he killed Shade Dixon, his girlfriend. And Miss Ayala asked me to handle one of those cases. And so I went about doing that. And at some point, I started to hear rumblings that she was not going to seek the death penalty against Mr. Lloyd. Now, I fully understand that people have very strong views about the death penalty, and I think there are right aspects of both sides of that argument. I happen to be a Christian, but I know, because I'm a Christian and I've read my Bible, that you can support both sides of that argument from the New Testament and the Old, right? But for me, as a prosecutor, and I think all prosecutors, the law has to dictate our views on things to an extent. And the law in the state of Florida is if there are aggravating factors involved, then the death penalty is appropriate to be sought. And at the end of the day, our fellow citizens are going to decide the right decision for that particular defendant and in those circumstances. So, and I know this is a long story, but there's a reason I'm telling it to answer your question. So I was asked at some point to bring one of the families of the victims in of a case I was prosecuting because Miss Ayala, quote, wanted to see the other side. And my first reaction to that was, well, this is our side. I don't know what she means by the other side, but I did it because I was hopeful that if she saw the pain that this family was experiencing, she would have a better understanding of why we do what we do and that we need to be balanced as prosecutors. So a woman whose name I won't use, but who has become and remains a good friend of mine, whose mother was murdered, came in and poured her heart out to Miss Ayala for about an hour about the ramifications of her loss and how it felt to go through this criminal justice system. And then I found out about 3 weeks later, like the rest of the public, that Miss Ayala, before asking me to set that meeting, had been communicating with people in New York City about how to roll out her platform and this decision that she was making, and that this woman's pain was an hour of political theater. And it just ticked me off. It was completely unbecoming, selfish, and mean, in my opinion. And quite frankly, I wasn't going to be a part of an office that did that kind of thing. And I wasn't going to associate with a top law enforcement official who didn't believe in following the law. And I know that's a strong statement, but it's the way I felt. And I think I backed that up because instead of just talking about it, I left. And Brad King, who is the state attorney of the Fifth Circuit, who the governor gave all those cases to when Miss Ayala made her decision, happened to reach out to me and ask me to come and help him with those cases. And I remember speaking to him and my wife, and I told him the Friday that I decided to leave, I said, the only caveat to this is I really feel the need to run for state attorney. And if that's a problem for you, I don't think I can take this job. And he said, no, it's not a problem for me. As long as, you do the job I'm asking you to do, then you'll have my support. And he's been exceptionally supportive ever since. And that's how I ended up on this path.
Wow, so many questions. I want to ask you, what were you going to do? Because I feel the same way. The death penalty, I could have an entire week's worth of discussions on that. But what were you going to do when you made the decision? You said, I can't be in an office that goes against just my basic humanity. What were you going to do before the Brad King offer came in?
That's an excellent question, because I do have a family and a mortgage. And because I've been prosecuting my whole career, I didn't have a nest egg set aside. So I actually went to a couple of friends, one of whom does personal injury work. There's always a market for people who can try cases. And I actually went to his office and took the afternoon off and said, hey, I may need you to give me a job, because I thought I was going to get fired, because I made my opinion known in the Lloyd case because Mr. King asked me to be cross-sworn, which basically means I would still work for Miss Ayala, but I would work on the case. And Miss Ayala didn't care for that. And quite frankly, I didn't ask for permission, because I felt like the family of the victim needed me and wanted me to be a part of it. So I went out and I contacted that person at a local law firm and another person, and was making plans to leave. And it's funny because I was handling 4 or 5 of the capital cases that were removed at the time. And when all of the cases got removed, I remember Mr. King came over for a hearing, and we were standing in the hallway outside the courtroom. And he said to me, maybe it would be easier if you just came and worked for me on these cases. And I thought he was joking. Like I literally laughed in the hallway, and then I realized he was dead serious. And, I believe we have to do the right thing in our lives, and we have to make our own path. It's sort of the American way. But I also believe that timing is everything, and we all have our own destiny, and God has a plan. And I can't help but think that all those things fell into a place for a reason. Now, does that reason mean that I'm going to be the next state attorney? Maybe not. But I know that it means that these families that I was with for many years and remain with today didn't have to change prosecutors and go to a stranger. They didn't have to upend their lives even more and have more emotional upheaval, because I was able to stay with them. And I'm grateful for that opportunity.
What do you want to do or change if elected? I love the title. I don't know if you put it or if you created it, prosecutor, not a politician. So when you go into it from that perspective, you're obviously going into it and saying, I don't want to play the politics. I don't want to be labeled as that. I want to do what I came to do, which we both know is always a challenge when you get into any kind of political office, because there's so many different pressures and there's so many different people pulling at you. What do you want to change? What do you want to do? What do you want to create that you see as something that desperately needs to be done?
I want every prosecutor at the state attorney's office to do the right thing and to know that that's what I want them to do. And that sounds simple, but it's hard. There are a lot of things and factors that pull at prosecutors, including the ones that just came out of law school, when you're making a decision, because every single criminal case, you deal with victims whose lives have been changed in some way. You deal with defendants who more often than not need a second chance, right? They don't need a hammer on them. And you deal with law enforcement, judges, and the system. And all of those concerns can end up clouding people's judgment. And then if you add in, if the elected state attorney is more concerned about his or her legacy or about changing policy than they are about making sure the right thing is done, then prosecutors, and I know this because this has happened to me, you start to second guess your own judgment. You know, when your state attorney is a quote unquote reformer and you are dealing with an individual that you believe is a danger to society, that's a conflict in your mind.
Right.
You know, most of the time I like to think that prosecutors, and there are a lot of good ones in the Ninth Circuit that I'm going to be working with and hope to work with again soon. I like to think that most of the time they will do the right thing, and that is what they know to be the right thing on the facts and circumstances. But I want to take away that concern that they have and let them know that it's okay to do the right thing. Give them some guidance and experience as to what the right thing is and how we should be helping our community, and then just allow them to do the work.
I think it's brave when anybody runs for office. I just feel like that is an undertaking that you have so many decisions you have to make when you go through that process. So what was that conversation like with your family, with your wife, saying, all right, I think I'm going to give it another run? I think people want to know. They think it's easy, and it's just not, Ryan. It's not.
No, it's not. There's a fine line between courage and stupidity, I guess, is the other thing I would say. As I alluded to earlier, my wife is exceptionally supportive. She is also my biggest critic. You know, like I probably will not show her this interview because she'll have way too many critiques for me to be able to survive the day. But she has my back when I need it, and she knew and knows that I believe in what we're doing. She understands the significance of the office. I mean, we're way past the point where I can share facts about cases because she just can't handle it anymore. But she understands what I do is important. So, you know, there are financial decisions, as I alluded to. I feel very blessed. We live in a nice home and have good friends, and we don't suffer for anything. But we're also not wealthy, and so that's a consideration compared to people who can finance their own campaigns. And the biggest thing for me and for her is the time. You know, my kids are young, and I really value my time with them. I want them to understand that I love them, obviously, but I also, Ted, I want them to 10 or 15 years from now look back and say, when I wasn't there, because that'll happen, that Daddy was doing something important.
Yes.
And the reason I want them to know that, it's not just so that they know that I love them, but so that they will have that feeling that that's what they need to do too. You know, we need, in my opinion, more people who are talented and hardworking that want to serve, and not serve because they want to go work at a hedge fund afterward. Nothing wrong with hedge funds, but go make a lot of money after their service, but because they want to improve their community, their state, their country, and they're dedicated to doing that. But you're right. You know, people throw arrows and darts, and occasionally not nice things are said. And even when it goes great, it means it's time away from my two kids. It's time that I could be spending with them. So I have to acknowledge that the decision was not all that hard because I believe what I'm telling you. And to me, it wasn't really a choice. The alternative was, well, it's just going to be fine and I'll go and prosecute cases. And that was unacceptable to me.
So before I ask you like how people can get involved, I have one comment, and then I've got a question for you. I believe 100% in the whole servant leadership thought process as well. We need more people to get involved. People really don't know how, and one of the reasons why we do this show all the time is to try to give them something that might pique their interest or spark their curiosity, or them say, wow, I really like that Ryan guy that was on the TED show. I wonder if he needs help with his campaign, or I wonder if there's something that I can do to volunteer with victims. I mean, there's so many opportunities, but I feel like as a whole, we don't, and this is just overall, people have a difficult time finding that information. So one of the things we always promote is mentorship on the show. And I think that if you all have any interest, we're going to share Ryan's contact information, how you can get involved or how you can ask questions later on. Let me ask you one thing that I ask every guest that's completely off topic, but I think people want to know. What are you doing to maintain your sanity, to maintain your creativity during quarantine when you are shut down, basically in the house all the time? What are you personally doing?
I run every day, and I have run every day for, geez, almost 25 years now. So I do it early. I usually leave my house between 5 and 6 a.m. and go out with the raccoons. And no matter what's happening in my life, when I get back from that run, I always feel better. So in that vein, if things start to get a little hectic, and they are, I'll go outside, go for a jog, go for a walk. The nice thing about this situation, and I'm sure a lot of people have said this to you, is I have had an opportunity to be around my kids more than I did for probably 6 to 12 months before that, between my job and the campaign. And that has been a really nice experience. I can say that now at 10 a.m. By noon, when I'm working on my homicide trial and they're asking me how to spell this, and they need snack, etc., things get a little different. But I have really tried to embrace the time with my family, and we get outdoors a lot. And today's weather is going to make that easier.
It's gorgeous. All right. So thank you. How do people get involved? How do people reach out? They have questions. They want to know more about the campaign. They want to know more about what you're doing. What's the best way for somebody to reach out to you?
Our website is at the bottom. It's scrolling. Thank you very much. It's ryanforjustice.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram, Ryan Williams for State Attorney. You can send an email to that. I see that directly. In fact, I was sitting there watching Netflix after my kids went to bed last night with my wife. She was emailing somebody, and we were sort of half watching television, and somebody reached out via Facebook, and I responded. And I'm a big believer that you need to have contact with me, not just the campaign person or campaign people. So if you go to that website or the Facebook page, reach out and you'll get a response.
You have questions, just to let you know. So I didn't get a chance to ask them either. So if you get a chance, go back through, look at the comments. I just want to give you a heads up on that. Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the show. That was really enlightening. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and transparent and sharing your story. I think it's important when we have people who are running for office, for people to get to know them outside of mainstream media. Love to my mainstream media friends, but it's good to have just one-on-ones with somebody and actually have a real conversation. So thank you for taking time to do that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. All right, Ryan Williams, everybody. Thank you, guys. We will be back. I'm going to eat, I think, at 11 o'clock, so we're going to see how that goes. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.